Guys, thank you so much for being here. I know you guys all traveled far and wide to be here. And of course, this is our first big IRL event for our developers in 5 years. And it coincides with our 20th anniversary, which is just really, really cool for us. And it's awesome to see you all here again. So thank you for making the effort to be here. I do think it's worth saying how important all of you have been to the journey of Shopify. We say that Shopify is for most merchants most of the time. That's what we put into the core product. But all of you here in this room are the ones who build the bespoke solutions, all of the things that merchants need on top of the platform that make the experience come together. And so this really wouldn't work without you, and we wouldn't be here without you. So I just want to say thank you for that. And please give yourselves a round of applause. I know there's a few, but I think it's worth it. A few little numbers. I'll do as few of these as I possibly can today, but a few little numbers that are worth celebrating. Figure out the clicker. There are now 13,000 apps in the ecosystem, which is really awesome, from over 9,000 developers from 109 countries. We got 200 themes in the theme store, and our current forecast says that this year we expect to pay out around $1 billion with a B to the ecosystem. So we've really come a long way, and this feels pretty good. Now, part of the reason of why we're here today is that yesterday, as I hope most of you have had a chance to see, we actually put out a new edition. It was our Summer 24 edition, and it is another 150 updates to improve all the parts of the product for both merchants and for you guys who build on the platform. Now, the theme was unified. And the reason we chose this as the theme for the edition was that, as many of you who've seen Shopify grow up over the years, over time, Shopify has solved more and more and more problems for merchants, whether we help them sell online and in person, whether it's D2C and B2B, whether it's domestic and global, desktop, mobile, all of these aspects of Shopify that help a merchant, avoid having to buy millions of bits of software and stitch them together and go into integration hell. This is a great thing for merchants as long as the parts of the platform work well together. And so in the edition, you will see so many stories, and some of them are those smaller stories that are just in text, but they're just as important, of us really doubling down on making the parts of Shopify work well together, whether it's discounts and draft orders, or managed markets and order editing, all of these things where we try to make the parts of the platform work really well together. I remember having, I think it was a coffee with, I think Gavin Ballard and I were walking around 6 months ago, and I was talking about the roadmap, and there was just one item at the top that said unification. And we walked for a coffee, and he said, dude, if there's only one thing you do, please, for the love of God, do that one thing. That would be the best thing that would make the platform better. So that's where we're focused at the moment. And the headline of the edition, which we're really excited about, was markets, which I think is a great example of unification. It is the first time that we've brought together all of those different contextual behaviors of Shopify across B2B, across regions, and now across retail, so that merchants can configure and view all of those different setups in one place. But instead of me just standing here waving my arms around, why don't I just give you a quick demo of how it actually works. So when you go into the admin, there will now be a new left nav entry for markets. And for those of you who've been around Shopify for a while, you'll know that getting something into the left nav is literally the hardest thing you can do at Shopify. It is a goddamn nightmare to get something into the left nav. So you'll now see markets in the left nav. And from this screen, you will see all of the different markets in the store laid out in front of you across, again, regions, retail, and B2B. You can see reports about how they're doing. And if you want to create a market for the first time, all you do is hit the Create Market button. And let's imagine we're setting up this store to do wholesale in Canada for the first time. So you just go ahead. We're going to say we want all company locations in Canada. It filters to those locations for us. We click Done. It guesses a reasonable name because AI. And then we stage a new catalog into this market and click Save. Now, from here, we can click directly into the catalog, and this is the same catalog setup you've seen before. We do a discount for wholesale pricing, click Save. Nice new back button in the top nav to get you back to the market. And from here, all we have to do to take this live is activate the market and click Save. Now, what you just saw there in 20 seconds or so, I think all of you would know that on most commerce platforms, what we just saw in 20 seconds could be a weeks or months-long consulting project. And frankly, even on Shopify until recently, that might have been, let's start a different store, let's start syncing inventory and splitting up the data to do wholesale and a whole bunch of extra work. And so it's really great that now merchants will be able to do all of that from one screen in one store, which is just a lot less complexity. Another thing with markets is that you'll remember this from the last edition, that we also support doing theme overrides on a per market basis. So as an example, in this shop, I think there's a French market set up. And if we go into that French market, we'll see on the detail page for the market that there is already a customization here for the online store, for the homepage. You can see it right here. It's super easy to tell what's going on. And we can click from here into the theme editor, and we'll see on the top that the little green diamond says we've got an override for the homepage banner in French. I hear the French are relatively particular about their language. And so then we can jump back to the market. And again, it's super easy to see all in one place. In France, we've got that homepage override. Again, really easy to figure out. Now, in the current version of Shopify, you can do catalogs for regions and you can do them for B2B. But what you couldn't do until now was do catalogs on a per retail location basis. So in this store, again, you can drill into the United States and see that there's a 502 Broadway retail location set up. And we've actually already set up a catalog for 502 Broadway with special pricing for New York, because New York rent is a thing, and all those rich douches in New York can pay a little bit more money, so we're going to charge them a little bit extra. That's how Daddy gets a taste. And so in this store, we've set up different pricing for retail, but how do we preview it? Because with B2B and regions, you can go into the online store and you can see what the difference is going to be. You can browse as the browser, as the shopper, and see what it's going to be. But now you can click into products and click this View As button, and you can actually, in the admin, preview what is going to happen in that context. So we can click into the point of sale, click the location, and now all those prices on the right-hand side are the prices that people will pay at that retail location in New York without actually having to go into the point of sale and do it on the iPad. Now let's imagine I actually want to change the price of that tote at the top. I actually want to make that even more expensive. And so I can go into the detail page. I'm still in preview mode, and I can see that $200 is what is going to be paid at that location. But I can click into the catalog and see, okay, well, here's why it's $200, because we've got a 5% adjustment from the catalog. But if I want to override that, I can just go in, override it manually right there on the product page, click Save, and I'm actually saving to the underlying catalog, but from the product page. And so now if I go back to the product index, it's going to show me that that tote costs $215 in that context, which we've never had before, and that's just going to make it way easier for merchants and for you guys to understand what is actually happening in this store and what will buyers actually see. Most of what I've showed so far has been about configuring markets, but imagine you're a new employee of this business, or imagine you're an agency and you're coming into this store for the first time and you're like, how does this thing even work? Like, how do they set this thing up? You can come to the market screen and from a single screen just get a bird's eye view of how does it work, and click into this graph view where you can see hierarchically, how do these markets fit together, which ones inherit from the next one, and what overrides exist at each level, so you can understand which settings are actually taking effect in which context and how it all fits together. And a lot of this work was motivated by, earlier in this year, I think Toby said it best, he said, Shopify has become so powerful, but it's almost like you need a PhD in Shopify settings to understand how the store is actually set up. And so we hope this helps make that a little bit easier. So yeah, we're pretty proud of this one and excited for you guys to get your hands on it. Yeah, thank you. Thank you. Yeah. So we're going to spend most of today on developer highlights, developer tools, new APIs, things like that. I'm going to bring out a bunch of our R&D leaders in a second to talk through their favorite things and highlights from the edition, but a few that I just want to put my little bit of top spin on. The first one is we just shipped managed app pricing. So for those of you who like building your apps as opposed to writing pricing integration code and wanting to jump off a bridge, we will now do it for you. You can just go in and set up your pricing in the back end of the partner's dashboard, and you don't have to write any of the pricing code or any of the payment flows. The second thing is customer accounts extensibility. So we're going to talk a lot about extensions today, and I'm sure many of you have spent time mainly with checkout extensions over the last year, but that same dev stack is coming to the rest of Shopify, and customer accounts are a huge opportunity to build those logged in, personalized experiences for the customer accounts area. That's a whole new opportunity that we hope you guys take advantage of. And last but not least is we finally unified the CLIs. So from a single CLI, you can now do theme development, hydrogen development, and app development just from one command, which is really, really nice. Okay, so why don't we bring out Eitan and Rebecca. Guys, come on out. You guys spend all of your time obsessing about DX. Like, it's literally what you spend all day doing every day. And I want to get your pulse on what you are most excited about in terms of what we did for DX at this edition. Like, what rose to the top for you?
Yeah. So there's kind of two broad areas that we focus on when it comes to the DX. So we think about, first and foremost, increasing capability, giving you all more power to build on behalf of merchants. And second is about reducing friction, making it so you can get things done faster. When it comes to reducing friction, we think about things that occur frequently, are challenging to build, and error-prone. And we're really excited to share with you all today two areas where we're making significant advancements to the platform. They're around webhooks and data storage. So let's start with webhooks. Rebecca, what are some of the challenges that developers have today with webhooks? It's a pretty mature product.
Yeah, for sure. So obviously webhooks are super critical to your business. That's how you're finding out about commerce-centric events happening on shops, right? And we know it is super hard to manage your webhook subscriptions, especially as the topics you subscribe to are changing over time. So sometimes that means you have to write a bunch of shop-specific code just to get things working. And then you're relying on API calls. So if they fail for like whatever reason, intermittent errors, then sometimes you'll miss webhook subscriptions, and then you have to run offline reconciliation jobs, try to figure out what was going on to just get everything in sync. So it's definitely a real pain point.
Right, and so it's, in some cases, there are probably apps running in production where there's some small number of shops that are literally just failing and the developer wouldn't even know.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like, we see this in our data. We see exactly that case, and you probably don't notice unless you're really going looking for it.
Right.
But we're going to make all of that better. So let me show you what we're doing with declarative webhooks. So let's jump into my app toml. Glenn just showed you this file. It's where he put his scopes.
It's a great effect.
Sorry?
It's a great effect. I put the scopes in definitely the right place.
You did a great job. No, it was perfect. It was flawless. Okay, here's my webhook subscription. I'm not live coding it. It's already there. You can see I'm subscribed to 2 topics, products update, very popular, products create. I just throw it in there. They use the same URI so I can define them together. Again, here's the scope I need. And then I will Shopify app deploy. You can see my terminals just chilling at the bottom. So right now it's building the release. It picked up on my webhooks changing. And there we go. That's it. That's all you have to do.
Great.
Yeah.
And that is versus the other version where you have to issue a ton of GraphQL calls just to get all the shops in sync. That was so much easier.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome. I guess the question is, how does that actually work, though? That was almost a little bit too good to be true. How does that actually work?
Yeah, so our app platform is designed as a modular system. Each module is immutable and is attached to a specific app version. So what Rebecca just showed there is an app module. And an app could have like maybe dozens of modules, whether it's config, extensions, or functions. There's a lot, like many modules. And when we go to do a release, we take all those modules and we roll them up into a binary. And then we take that binary and distribute it to all the shops super quickly. It's a hyper-optimized way to get it to every single shop, which is pretty cool. And one nice side effect of modules being immutable is that if you want to do a rollback, it's super easy. You tell us rollback, and then we just redeploy the old binary.
OK, nice. So that's webhooks. The other thing you mentioned at the top that you thought we could do better at was data. So what are we actually doing with data?
Yeah. So when it comes to data, we very often see developers reaching for meta fields or meta objects in order to store some sort of app config or app state. And for good reason. They're really powerful. But they're also pretty challenging to work with from a DX perspective. If you want to use meta fields, you have to define the schema on a shop. You might have to do your own bookkeeping on the side to keep track of what schema is on what shop. And then if you eventually change your schema, you have to run a migration to get all the shops back into that same state. So it's pretty painstaking. A lot of developers came to us and said, hey, this could be a lot better. And we definitely agree. And so this is a sneak peek of something that is coming soon. It's not quite there yet, but Rebecca's going to show us what we've got in mind there.
Yeah, so we're going to jump back into the code, back to that same app, Toml. Here we go. We're going to just add a meta object definition with hardly any lines of code. So this is for an author type. You can see I'm declaring all the fields together in one block. It has these fields on it, and then the type of them. So whether it's a text field or a date, I think we support some other fields as well. And then if I do a Shopify app deploy here, what it's doing is it is immediately pushing out this schema to all the shops that the apps are installed on. So it's really great. It's very easy. It takes the app extensions along with it, kind of packages it all up, and you end up with a release that has all the logic and the data that you need in one place. Again, that's it. So easy.
That's awesome. And that's the power of declarative building. You tell us the app config, you tell us the app state that you want, and then we do all the work behind the scenes to get your app into that configuration. No more post-install hooks, no more migrations. It's all taken care of by Shopify. I'd also add that we're not building this just for you. We're building this for ourselves, too. All of our first-party apps are using the same dev platform that you all are using, so we feel both the friction and the advancements on the platform. Yeah,
we definitely push pretty hard on dog fooding internally because we want to feel the pain. 5 minutes ago, great example.
Yeah.
I feel like that a huge part of the transition in the DX over the past few years has actually been also around GraphQL, which has been a learning curve for a lot of people. What have we actually done to make that part of the DX better around GraphQL?
Well, maybe we should start first with why GraphQL. Maybe Rebecca, you want to talk about that a bit?
Yeah, for sure. So we love GraphQL. We started with GraphQL for storefronts. Storefronts is an environment where every millisecond counts, so we really don't have the luxury of overfetching there. And GraphQL's superpower is that you fetch exactly the data that you want. We're also using GraphQL for carts, and we use it under the hood for functions as well. And that whole same value prop also applies to the admin GraphQL API, where we want declarative selection of data, and we want to be able to traverse trees of data because the mental model works that way. And then on top of that, you get the added bonus of once we're already using GraphQL in some parts of the platform, it just makes a lot of sense to be able to leverage it everywhere as well.
Right.
Yeah.
You don't want to use a different tool for every different thing. So it's become more broad, right? It started with the storefront API. It's now in most of the APIs. So how do we make the DX sing?
Yeah. So just in the last 6 months, we've made a lot of improvements to GraphQL. So both on the tooling front and the capabilities front. On the tooling front, you saw the .dev assistant, which you were able to create a query, do a mutation, it would have worked with the scopes
Yeah.
really, really easily. And we think it's going to be really powerful. If you're just getting started with GraphQL, it makes the onboarding dramatically easier. Graphical in the CLI is another good example, where you can be assured that when you're using it from the CLI, all of your scopes are going to match. So as soon as you're building your GraphQL, you can be confident, like, hey, this is actually going to work when I put it in my app. And then last is the references. We've made a lot of improvements to the references to not just like tell you, hey, this is the input that we desire, but to actually show you the actual input in real examples, which makes it, again, a lot easier to understand the shape of the data and what we're expecting. And here's a good example of it. And on the capabilities front, we're doing things like total count pattern, where it makes it dramatically easier to get counts across products, orders, and customers, which is a basic thing, but we've made that a lot easier.
Got it. What's next? What should people here do if they want to learn more?
Yeah, what's next? So obviously, our primary focus is on making sure that admin GraphQL API feels complete. So we really want to make sure that it's covering the entirety of the platform. We've been pushing a lot on that, and we're on track to have that done, I think, by the end of the year. So that's going to be huge. Also, we want to
Rebecca,
make
that'll
sure
mean that there are no longer things that you can do in REST that you can't do in GraphQL.
Exactly.
Yeah.
GraphQL is going to like eclipse REST.
Right.
We also want to make sure that performance is excellent. That's like always a priority. We're always working on that. And then the last thing is we want to have world-class tooling. We want to make sure that all developers are productive, even if they're like Glen quality developers. So, yeah. Yeah, sorry.
Okay, so today at the event, where can folks go if they want to learn more about what we're doing for the DX?
Yeah, so we're going to be at the Developer Experience product booth, and then also you can come by the community stage and hear from some of our partners as well.
Awesome. Guys, thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks.
All right. Thanks, guys. So a lot of what we do in our dev platform is around extensions, and a lot of extensions the last couple of years have come out of the checkout group. So I'm going to bring out Marnie and Mike, who lead the checkout team, to talk a bit more about the future of extensions. Come on out, guys. Yeah. All right, so you guys have been on a real journey for the last couple of years with the new version of checkout and rolling out extensions, which are kind of the backbone of how people customize it now. And yeah, the story of extensions so far has been very checkout-centric, I think it's fair to say. But we're doing more than just checkout with extensions. So what is the bigger picture?
Yeah, and there's going to be a lot of talk today. We're throwing a lot at you. But if there's only one thing you remember from this segment, is that extensions and apps are the future of customizing Shopify. And millions of merchants are transitioning to a world where this is their reality over the next year and beyond.
So the future of everything is kind of big talk. Like what do you mean?
Yeah. So it's like, you've probably all seen extensions showing up all over the place, and that's not really by accident. And in the past, we had given you Liquid for being able to customize things like checkout or customer accounts. We gave you Shopify scripts to be able to do some back-end customizations and so on. But really, we're shifting the entire model. We're moving to a world where extensions and apps that are able to cross-cut many surfaces, not just checkout, not just customer accounts, but also the POS, also the admin. That's the future of these customizations. And we think it's going to open up the aperture massively for opportunities for our entire ecosystem.
That sounds great. It also sounds like potentially a lot of work and a lot of change. Like, what are the actual, like, what's the there? What's the benefits of actually doing this?
Yeah, so let's talk a little bit without getting too much into like platform philosophy. Let's hit a couple of major notes. So the first thing is, we end up isolating your code inside of sandboxes. And what that allows us to do is integrate them really well with both our privacy and permission frameworks. And that means that we're much better able to protect both merchant data and customer data than ever before. And of course, that helps your app stay on the right side of compliance with a lot less work to do because we take care of a lot of it. And global regulations are changing all the time. Two great examples here. We've got e-privacy in Europe and the way that we're able to better handle data segregation, as well as the PCI, the card industry is always changing the rules and regulations. So this is the best way to take advantage of Shopify extensions. There's a second point, which has to do with when we're able to control both the hosting as well as the fetching of data for your apps, we're able to always optimize for performance. And that means your apps will always feel snappy.
That is really important. And I mean, I guess taking it back to the previous model with like checkout.liquid, one of the things that was always like super bizarre to me was that, we gave that customization option to our Plus merchants, but as soon as they used it, they would get pinned to the old version of the checkout. And so our best customers were on the oldest version of the checkout. And like, it was always like super weird. Like, I was like, why are we doing it this way? So I don't know, that always felt like a weird thing.
Yeah, that was always terrible. Yeah. Absolutely nobody loved checkout upgrades. And we know that many of you in the audience probably didn't either. And we've completely done away with that. We have a new world that we call quote unquote upgrade safety. And the way that it works is that we are always able to run your apps side by side with our native code, where what you mostly have to worry about is just API versioning. And related to that, because you end up building the apps with the same UI components and the same data APIs as we use, that's the magic of how we can execute the native functionality paired with any custom apps you may be building, as well as, of course, all those public apps that are available in the App Store side by side, and both the merchant and buyer flows end up feeling familiar.
Right, so it's the extensions are using basically the same UI components that we're using in the core product. They are integrated through the back end, through functions, and then you have kind of like meta fields, meta objects, like the data layer that kind of ties it all together, basically.
Yeah, exactly. So we're going to run through an example here. We're going to bring together checkout UI extensions, functions with metadata underneath it all. I'm just going to run you through a quick demo. So first of all, here's my store, Plant, and we sell plants. Some of them are pretty big and bulky, like this fiddle leaf fig here. This is a 6-foot fiddle leaf fig. It's pretty large. We're based here in Canada. We've got a bunch of locations, and we offer local pickup for those stores. And so we've got a standard pickup offering, which lets you pick up the goods at the counter. And we've also got this new premium curbside pickup offering, which has a couple of extra features, such as an extra wide loading dock, dedicated staff to carry your item, and a protective lining for your car. So what we're going to do here is we're going to build a simple checkout customization, which sort of highlights that new service on each of the local pickup options and sort of decorates it here in the UI. So how we're going to do that is we're going to build a function, pair that up with a UI extension with some metadata underneath it all. So first of all, just jumping into the function code, we're using the local pickup delivery option generator function. And the first thing we're going to do here is we're going to remove any locations which are already at capacity and no longer accepting orders for the day. So I'm syncing that value into a location meta field on a cron job, and I'm just like removing that right here. Then we're going to push in some metadata to each of the options, containing whether or not like the particular location supports that premium service, and then also the beginning and end time for that service window. So switching over to the UI extension code here that we're going to pair this function up with. First thing we're going to do is just going to read the meta fields from each of the local pickup options that we've just pushed to the function output. And then we're going to render some UI here as well to just highlight that service and some of the features that go with it, as well as calculate the remaining time on the service window using the local time of the buyer. So we're getting that kind of dynamic window rendering in checkout. So switching back over to the buyer experience here again, you can kind of see that I've got that first location in Brockton Village, which is just offering standard pickup. And I've got these two other locations, one in Davenport and one in Regent Park, offering the premium option. And the Davenport location is open now, closes in 6 hours, plenty of time for me to get there. So really just helping the buyer make a good choice about which selection to go with. And that's it, basically bringing together the server-side logic of Shopify functions with the UI expressiveness of UI extensions, meta fields acting as the shared state underneath it all.
Right, and it really is that alley-oop from the output of the function with the meta fields into the input of the UI extension so that it all just kind of came together. I'm sure people in this room have seen things like that with checkout extensions over the past few months, but where else are they going to be able to do things like that on the platform?
Yeah, so yesterday we obviously announced a ton at Editions. I'm sure you've all had a chance to have a look. So let's dive into just a couple of the big things that have to do with Shopify extensions. So customer accounts extensions. You are now able to use the customer and account editor in order to be able to place those app blocks in your dev stores and get all that WYSIWYG goodness of testing it out for yourselves. We paired that with an announcement about extension collections and their ability to have default placements. And this is really good for those of you who need multiple app blocks installed for your apps to really come to life. Great example of this could be, let's say, a loyalty app that needs 3 or 4 different app blocks targeting different extension points that cut across both checkout as well as customer accounts. Another thing that we announced that we were quite excited about is that we're greatly increasing the number of places in the admin that you have both what are called action and block extensions. And these are designed to really make it far more seamless for the merchant not to have to switch between too many pages in order to get their tasks done. And a small delight example of this that we love is the new print extension, which allows your app to be able to produce the different kinds of documents like packing slips or invoices or even product information pages that are able to be printed directly from the order and product pages, again, rather than having to jump between your app pages and the admin.
So this is pretty cool. I mean, this is the magic of commerce, right? It's all the way from printing invoices in a warehouse to LLMs. Isn't this the world we live in? Okay. This all sounds great, all these different things we can do. And I feel like the DX has come a long way, but like where do you guys, I mean, you guys see this every day, like where could it still be better? Like what are the rough edges that we feel like we want to fix?
Yeah, so there's a couple of areas that spring to mind, and we'll never be done, of course, improving the product. I think one area is the UI extension settings that we offer in the checkout and accounts editor could be like a lot more expressive than it is right now. We basically offer a simple static schema for your settings, but it really doesn't allow you to build that more sophisticated and dynamic UI that you might need for your app. So that's one. The second one is we've noticed that some of our UI component APIs are not consistent across some of the surfaces. So whether you're working with checkout extensions or admin UI extensions or other parts of the platform, we've got to make sure that the developer experience is consistent no matter where you're using those UI components. So that's something as well. That
maybe even unified.
Yes, we need to, yeah, exactly, unified.
If only we had an edition for that.
If only we had an edition for that. So if this is where we're going, like how can people think about taking advantage of this new way of building apps and extensions? Like how should they be thinking about the future?
Yeah, I appreciate the alley-oop there.
Yeah.
That's useful. So look, you all saw in the demo how all the building blocks came together. And we've seen hundreds of apps already go all in with Shopify extensions, and they're the ones winning. So really, it's time to build those high-quality apps that merchants need. Because like I said, like millions of them are moving over to this new world over the next year. And so you can all just insert your favorite quote about a gold rush right here.
I mean, for me, this reminds me of like the beginning of the native mobile era when iOS and Android came out with native apps. And there was, of course, the developers who saw that building native would be a differentiator and kind of got on that train and were part of that movement. So, I mean, for me, that's this version of Shopify is like the native era. Given that, how can people learn more about this today? Where should they go to figure out what's
Yeah,
going on?
so stop by our extensibility stage. We've got a bunch of workshops happening. We've got some great product and engineering folks at the product booths ready to answer your questions. And then if you're interested in checkout later this afternoon, we're doing a checkout leadership AMA in one of the rooms, I think, over the side. So see you there.
And if any of you guys in this room have been hassled by either of these guys in the last year about upgrading to the new checkout thing, and you want to you feel some type of way about that, and you want to maybe let them know how you feel, I would really encourage you to go to that AMA.
Please come and harangue us.
Okay, well, thank you so much, guys, for telling us all about extensibility, and we'll see you at the stages later on.
Thanks, everyone.
Right, thanks. So we've spent time on the DX, we've spent time on extensions, but of course, storefronts are really the kind of beating, pulsing heart of Shopify. And so I want to bring out Vanessa and Kevin, who lead our storefronts team, to tell us about what's next for storefronts. Okay, so big addition for storefronts.
Huge.
Really big addition for storefronts.
Huge addition.
Internally, you guys, every time we do our product reviews and everything, you're always talking about flexibility for storefronts. It's kind of the name of the game. Can you share a little bit more with this group who are not inside the wall about like how you guys think about that?
Yeah. It's one of the things that I wanted to start off all the demos that we're going to show today, because it's been about almost half a decade that the team has worked so hard to make sure that flexibility was important. But inside storefronts, what we like to say is our mission is to make sure that every merchant has a home on the internet that they're proud of, right? So there's a lot in there, but in order for merchants to be proud of the home that they have on the internet, they have to be able to express their brand, right? And so started this journey a while ago. If some of you guys have been here for a while, before you were here, in 2000.
Did you guys know that Vanessa was here before me? It's hard to tell sometimes, but.
In 2021, we released OS 2.0. Since then, we've been working kind of behind the scenes to iterate. Yeah. This year, if it isn't felt already, it's a really big year for storefronts on flexibility again. And of course, we work on conversion, we work on speed. There's thousands of engineers that work on that at Shopify behind the scenes. But flexibility kind of underpins and is definitely important for this audience to hear, because it really helps theme developers and storefront developers at large.
Got it. So that's the headline story, that's the kind of strategy. But in this edition, Kevin, what did we actually kind of bring forward for the online store?
Yeah, so folks will remember last editions, we introduced theme blocks to make it easy to reuse the same block in multiple sections. This edition, we're introducing style settings. So let me show you what they look like. As you can see here on screen, style settings have this brand new compact UI that's optimized for this purpose. They're also grouped together in what we call panels, so relevant settings are co-located together. They're also breakpoint aware, meaning that merchants can set a different value between desktop and mobile, so no more having to create two duplicate settings to achieve the same thing.
Yes.
It's gonna be great.
Those suck, right? Yeah.
Yes.
Adopting style settings in your themes is super easy. You simply add them just like you would any regular setting. And the best part is that Shopify writes all of the CSS for you. All you have to do here is just tell Shopify which element you want to apply these styles to. And then if you want to provide defaults, you can use CSS notation for things like padding. So you can use shorthand, it all works. And you can even include media queries here to provide mobile defaults. And that's it. It's easy as that.
Amazing.
And Kevin, I feel like in previous versions of the online store, you could create all those like style settings, but it would have been like, I don't know, huge amounts of code. And I feel like you had it in like 3 lines of code.
Yeah, I actually counted. It would be over 20 different settings to achieve the same flexibility.
Dude, that's awesome.
Yeah. Wait. I have more to share before you take the mic back. Okay. One of the things that we like to talk about, so if you guys remember, style settings, it's a huge upgrade. Now merchants can edit the layout and style of their storefronts in the way that feels really natural. Keep in mind that in January, if you guys remember, we also released theme blocks. So if you haven't checked out that developer preview, please check it out. Completely redefines kind of the theme structure. Now blocks are the atom of the online store versus sections.
Because it used to be sections, basically.
It used to be sections,
right?
yes. That also cuts down on a lot of code that you have to write. You don't have to repeat your block. The amount of times we've seen text block in, let's say, Dawn is incredible.
A lot of copy paste.
Lots of copy and paste, lots of maintenance. So that's all been changed. So we have theme blocks, blocks are the new atom. We got styles, breakpoint aware, and then we also hinted at something at Editions yesterday around data sources. So that means that if you have really nested, let's say I create a really intricate layout on my site, there's a lot of nesting happening, data can then finally flow through all the blocks and then hydrate everything on the site. So all these 3 things together make sure that makes merchants able to basically construct, drag and drop, and create like infinite varieties of layout, which is also that flexibility theme. Now, keep in mind, I'm very excited to say these words. These 3 things are big enough that together they form something that inside Shopify we call OS 3.0. So if you haven't caught all, yes, come on.
Yes.
We're super excited about it.
Yes, so like I saw a lot of tweets, and I'll just like address it. Everyone's like, oh my God, what's going on with Liquid? What's happening? It's like Liquid is gonna have a big 2024. So please go join the team on the storefront stage. They're gonna go through it in depth. Go ask them a ton of questions and give us lots of feedback. We're doing it really out in the open, and we are working very hard to bring it to production as soon as possible.
Awesome. So that's the online store, and we know that the vast majority of sites on Shopify are online store liquid themes. The other option for building storefronts on Shopify is, of course, headless and hydrogen. So Kevin, what have we been doing to make that better for developers?
Yeah, the big new thing this editions is the Hydrogen visual editor powered by Utopia. We hear from merchants that are using Hydrogen all the time that they love the control they get from that approach, but they sometimes get to feel a loss of productivity after launching their site. It becomes a bit harder to make small site updates or to put together landing pages without a developer. And ultimately, we want developers to be focused on solving hard problems, not doing copy changes.
Right.
And so that's why we acquired Utopia. It's really great. Let me show you what it looks like while Vanessa tells you more about it.
Okay, so one of the things that Kevin just talked about was Utopia is a visual code editor, right? And so on that panel is a very natural editing interface. You can see tote bags are now on sale. Kevin's going to just do that there on screen. And the great thing about Utopia and why we loved working together with them was that the code that gets outputted from Utopia stays really clean, really what you would essentially do if you were a developer. And you can see that it just changed the strings, just like you would if you were to do a normal PR. And this goes kind of synonymous with our approach overall with storefronts, but keeping developers at the center of it all and making sure that they are the ones that are maintaining the code after it comes out of this tool and they feel good about that they are in control for the experience. And so let's jump to a larger demo. So let's jump to Page. So let's say in this scenario that I'm a developer and Kevin is a designer on my team. In this scenario, I'm able to basically create a bunch of components for him to be able to drag and drop into the page and construct, for example, this tote bag page. And what's great about this is very much like any React project in Utopia. If you load up a React project in Utopia, all the props get read directly from the code, and you'll be able to see a visual editing interface on the right-hand side of the panel.
Right, so any existing React project can come in here. You don't have
Correct.
to do special stuff to make it work with Utopia.
Yeah, correct. And so it just reads your native React code. But let's say we also know that a lot of folks who are building headless sites, I got some props that I don't want designers and maybe non-technical folks to be able to mess with. Kevin, I just don't trust you with all of my variables just yet.
Why not?
And so you're able to pick which props you would like your folks to be able to edit, and then that's what shows up on the right-hand side. And so you're able to kind of craft this editing experience, very similar to how you do in Liquid when you're working with the editor. And now, one other little detail, just a little sleeper, you see in the children corner there, that little blue icon. We also know that when you're building headless sites, you don't always have all of the content in the project. Very rarely do you see tote bags on sale, like what we just did on the homepage. And so we made sure with Utopia that it reaches into third-party data sources. And so in this scenario, this is actually meta objects of this store. Pretty awesome that all these pieces are coming together, and now we can wrap it all up this way. But it could also work with other third-party CMSs in the future. And so from end to end, you see how Kevin can go from I'm going to construct a layout, I'm going to maybe tweak some styling, and then I can also hydrate all of the page with the right data source, all without needing my help. And then now, of course, when he's done this page, he can then submit the PR into GitHub, and it just works right seamlessly into our development workflow, goes right into CI/CD. I can peer review it if I would like, and then that's it. Cuts down on many, many hours of work and makes the cost of maintenance so much lower.
Right, so Utopia,
Come on.
guys. Yeah, give it up. So this is really, really cool, but I feel like we've always had two different storefront platforms at Shopify, and until now, one of the biggest differences between the two was that one of them had a visual editor and the other one didn't.
Right.
Right? And so, now that difference is kind of going away and there's a visual editor in both places, I'm sure the question for some of the folks in the room is well, how does Shopify think about these two platforms? Which one of these, is one of them the new thing, one of them's the old thing, is one of them the future, is one of them the past? How should people in this room think about storefronts, and if they're starting a new project or a new company, which of these two approaches they should pick. Is there a favorite child, Kevin, or how do we think about that?
Yeah, we hear this question a lot too. We at Shopify are investing heavily in both paths. So at the end of the day, it's really a matter of preference. We see Hydrogen being a great option if you need server control or if you need to integrate with other third-party systems like a CMS, if you need to control the routing. It's really the option that gives you the ultimate flexibility. Liquid, on the other hand, is for folks who don't want to have to worry about infrastructure. They just want to focus on their business and get going and trust that Shopify has got their backs and is going to take care of the rest. But at the end of the day, both options are highly flexible, and when Utopia launches, both of them will have a visual editor. We know that this is an important question and a very real question for so many of you, and so there's going to be an entire talk covering this topic on the storefront stage, so make sure you don't miss it. It's going to be hosted by Ben Sell, who's built sites using both of these paths and is absolutely great, so don't miss out.
Great. Guys, we'll see you at the storefront booth. All of the talks are up here. Please go visit these great folks later on today. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, everyone.
Appreciate it. Yeah. Okay, and so we've mostly spent time talking about tech so far, storefronts, extensions, the DX, and I assume folks in the room also care about making money at some point. And so I'd love to bring out Mike and Sadia, who run our ecosystem team, the App Store to the Theme Store, to talk a little bit about growth. Guys, come on out.
Hi.
Hi. I'm in trouble.
It's okay.
I know.
Hey, Mike.
Guys, I'm going to start with a tough one. So good news, there's 13,000 apps in the App Store, but is there any white space left? Like, is there any opportunity left at this point?
Yeah, Glenn, there is a massive opportunity. We have millions of merchants. Our merchant base has nearly doubled since 2019, and they come from all sorts of different countries around the world, and they need your help. On average, merchants use 6 apps, and if they're Plus merchants, they use 12. And I think you heard from Glenn earlier that big 1 billion number.
Yep.
You're on pace this year to earn more than $1 billion just by making cool shit for merchants. So there's a big opportunity.
That is good news, although 6 apps or 12 apps, like it could just be the biggest ones. So like if you're a smaller developer or thinking about starting a new app, like what do those opportunities look like?
Yeah, there's a ton of opportunities for small devs, new devs. In fact, we've got several examples of apps that have broken into the top 5% of installs just starting last year. There's also a really interesting app that we looked at recently called Essential Announcements Bar, and that broke into a really mature category that's been around for a long time, the banners category.
Banners on the internet.
Banners,
Who
yeah,
would have
that's
thought?
right.
Yeah, crazy.
Breaking in as a really new dev into a really crowded category, just by building a great app, they were able to shoot to the top of the search rankings. So there's a ton of opportunity for everybody.
I mean, that's really cool. I mean, you don't see that too often, but that's cool that that's still really happening in a number of places. And so as we look at success stories like Essentials, Announcements Bar, especially for these ones that are managed to break out, what do those success stories actually have in common that helps them do that?
Yeah, I mean, it sounds simple, but the truth is making a really high quality app is the path to getting success. And we define that through our Built for Shopify program.
So your advice is just be better?
Be better.
Just please be better? Right, cool. Good advice. Yeah. Why did we start Built for Shopify? I mean, I love Built for Shopify, but like, why? Why that?
Yeah. So a couple years ago, we took a really hard look at our ecosystem. And the truth is, and you all know this, app experiences were all over the place. And especially when you think about how we plan to extend more apps into more parts of the admin, like something had to change. We want our apps to be as good as the rest of Shopify. And so that was really the genesis of Built for Shopify. So we started out by creating a set of requirements a year ago around things like great design, reliability, performance, ease of use. And just yesterday, we announced updated requirements. So we also have requirements around categories. Now, this gets us more specific because we are going to be raising the bar for Built for Shopify. And hopefully in return, you feel like you as a developer have a path to stay competitive in your category.
I mean, I feel like, if we go back a few years and we looked at the experience of using the Shopify admin itself and then apps, like there was a very, very big experience delta between the admin and the typical app. And I think the experience that we would hope to get closer to is something like what we experience on our phones, where if you use mail or messages, and then if you use like Instagram or Uber, the experience delta between the first and third party things is actually like pretty small now. And I feel like we're sort of on that path to kind of close the gap, right? That said, it does sound like work, like quality not cheap. Is it worth it? What do you get if you do the work?
Yes, we know it is a lot of work, and we read all your conversations on X debating whether or not it's worth it, and I'm here to tell you that it is. So in the first 2 weeks of getting that Built for Shopify badge and boost, an average app gets 50% increase in installs. That's huge. And it's also true for smaller apps, and it's even better. So if you're a smaller app, one that has fewer than 1,000 installs, that app install increase is 70%.
Okay.
So that's massive. We know it's worth it, but it doesn't just stop at installs. So merchants actually rate Built for Shopify apps they have higher, and they keep them for longer. As you might imagine—
So like less churn.
That's right, less churn. So as you might imagine, merchants don't have a lot of time to be trying apps, comparing them between each other. So they're really like relying on that Built for Shopify badge to indicate what quality is and to quickly get something that they can trust. So you're gonna see us continue to invest in this program, refine the requirements, and also work on incentives. In fact, Mike and I literally have a meeting on our calendar in 2 weeks that's like, what are our new incentives for Built for Shopify? If you have any ideas, he's not hard to find, so ask him later today, yeah.
So I imagine many of the people who've actually done the work to hit the BFS standard are actually in the room today. And so for those people who've actually done the work, they've met the standard, the app is great quality, what are we actually doing to help them grow through the App Store?
Yeah, so we're obviously focused on all the greatest hits that you know and love, like let's make search better, let's continue to make recommendations better on both the App Store and on admin.
Right, so improving the rankings.
Yeah, exactly. But we also hear from you about a lot of painful topics as well. And one of them that we often hear about is billing is a huge headache. Billing and pricing, it's not the stuff you want to do. You want to be spending time improving your app. You want to be spending time growing. So that's why, as Glenn talked about recently at the start, is we introduced managed app pricing. And so right from your app listing page, you can go and you can set your pricing and plans, and we take care of the rest. So we get rid of some of those headaches for you.
Yeah, dude, this is so painful. I remember writing so much code at Handshake for this kind of crap. I'm so glad we got rid of this. Super painful.
Yeah. And there's another category of feedback that we get from you guys, and often that is about reviews. Yeah. So getting your app through the review process, we hear is really painful. You say too many requirements, you say there's too much back and forth, and you also say that it takes way too long. So that's why we've been focusing on something called seamless app review. And what we've done there is we've set personalized requirements for your specific category of app so you can get started really quickly. We have automated checks at the outset, so it reduces some of that back and forth. And fun fact, Glenn, we had over 100 requirements recently. Do you remember that conversation?
Man, I'm trying to forget. We had 100.
Yeah, I know.
Embarrassing.
But now, I have good news for you. We are down to less than 50. So you put all that stuff together, you get through app review 30% faster, and we're at a much better place.
Yeah. Great.
Yes.
Yes, thank you.
Yes.
Less crap.
Fewer requirements.
Yeah, less bullshit. Thank you. Yes. Yeah.
Another thing we're going to do is continue to invest in storytelling around your app. So we redesigned the App Store a couple years ago, and we launched editorial with that. We're now starting to integrate some of that editorial into the admin, right where merchants work. So imagine you're a merchant, you're trying to set up shipping in Germany, a place where we might not have an offering at Shopify, and instead you see a really helpful guide of app recommendations just right for that market. So we've actually started to do this across home as well. and we're seeing millions of page views and huge install rates. So I know you all love getting featured on the App Store homepage or on the category pages, but getting recommended in the admin is even better. And to do that, you have to be really, really excellent because it's a really high trust surface. So we're going to keep investing in storytelling.
You're a believer in the written word?
I always have been, no matter what
It's called
GPT
token
tells
generation
me.
now, though. It's not called writing anymore. It's human token generation.
Content.
Okay. Great. So if people in this room do a great job on quality, we're going to help them in App Store rankings and all the ways we just talked about. That's kind of on the organic side. What about on the paid side for people who want to drive growth through paid advertising?
Yeah, so once we've exhausted all of those free channels, there is a lot of opportunity with App Store ads. In fact, 1 in 10 installs are currently coming from App Store ads. So, that's grown quite a lot recently. But we also heard a lot of feedback there as well. You want to be more specific with who you can target. And that's why we introduced plan-based targeting built for Shopify apps. And
Nice.
that gives you the ability to target people like Plus merchants, people on retail plans, and all of the various Shopify plans, so you can get really specific about who you target. We also have heard a ton about signal that you want to get when you're managing your ad campaigns. I want to know exactly what's happening, and I want to know it fast so that I can be on top of changes. And that's why we introduced real-time ad metrics, so you know right away how your ad campaign is performing, and then you can make sure that you save those hard-earned dollars to put them elsewhere. So a lot of opportunity with App Store ads as well.
Nice.
Okay, Glenn, I'm done with your questions. I have a question for you.
Okay.
Okay, around this time of year, we all get a little anxious, I know in this room, around which Shopify app is about to be announced and will it disrupt my app category?
Yeah.
So I'm just curious, can you share a little bit about your philosophy around building first-party apps, how they sort of work with the ecosystem, and maybe can you share a little bit about the recent acquisition of checkout blocks?
Yes, the mighty Gil. Yeah, it's a good question. I think it's a totally fair question. I'm sure many people in the room think about it. As I said earlier, our philosophy with the core product, which could be the actual core product or it could be first-party apps, has always been, what do most merchants need most of the time? And we work in tech, so what is expected by people is kind of always going up. It's what keeps us gainfully employed. And so in the case of checkout blocks, I think it's a great example. We've got checkout apps now and checkout extensions. And for those of you who don't know the app, I would describe it as a fairly generic toolkit of the basic extensions that you would kind of expect to be maybe built into the editor, right? Really simple things like banners and text fields and the sort of really basic things that are not specific to a particular category is probably the way I'd put it. And so I think those extensions were really the types of things that we would have, in my head, I'm like, that's what most Plus merchants most of the time would have expected to be in the checkout editor. And we actually had always intended to add those basic extensions in, but we were, of course, focused on building the underlying platform, which only we can do, so that makes sense. And then when we looked at the app, it really knocked it out of the park on, being basically at or above the BFS standard. We really felt like if we designed it, we would have designed it pretty much this way. And so from my point of view, it made sense because it does fall right into that most merchants most of the time bucket. But of course, there's still going to be hundreds, thousands of checkout apps that do things that are more specific, things that are more bespoke to an industry or a category or whatever. So that's how it's really most merchants most of the time is how we think about it. Cool. Yeah.
All right, I think we're at time here. Meet us at the App and Theme Growth Stage and Product Boost, where we'll tell you more about opportunities to grow. Also, come check out the Built for Shopify Lounge, where we'll tell you all about the Built for Shopify program, some of the new requirements, and also some of the new benefits as well. So hope to see you there.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks.
Yeah. All right. And guys, that's it for me on stage. I just want to thank you again for all making the effort to be here. I hope you enjoy the program that we've done so far, and I hope you enjoy getting to get hands-on with the teams that you depend on. Ask them hard questions, give them feedback, get in there, get your hands dirty, and yeah, enjoy the day, and I hope to see you guys later on at the office for a drink. So thank you, and let's give it back to Ben and Liam. Guys, thank you.